The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
14:20 in the morning, 14 minutes and 20 seconds where the sports talk to get you through your daily commute. Hot takes, recaps, best bets, and a little humor to get your day going in the right direction. Sit back, grab your coffee, and let's get into it. All right, 14:20 in the morning for this 27th day of November 2023. Today's show, as always, is brought to you by SeatGeek.com, the SeatGeek app. Use promo code 1420POD at SeatGeek.com today and save yourself $20 on your first purchase over there at SeatGeek. Remember, we are part of the Belly Up Media Network. Go to BellyUpSports.com for all their great articles and other great podcasts, such as the Corner Booth Podcast, Rise the Occasion, and No Credentials Required, all over there on BellyUpSports.com. And thank you from all of us here at 14:20 in the morning for making this part of your day each and every day, whether it be in the podcast form or on YouTube or checking out our website, the 1420sportsbar.com. Thank you very much for taking it all in. I know I said yesterday during the surprise Sunday brunch edition of the 14:20 in the morning that I'd be doing these at 7:30 Mountain Standard Time. Check your local listings on a daily basis. And I blew it the very first day, but some extenuating circumstances. Family came to town. Deanne's Deanne, as you guys know, it's my blushing bride per se. Her family came to town through they went to a show last night, so the routine kind of got bumped on the very first day a little bit, but that's not a big deal. We'll get this straightened out starting tomorrow. But anyways, over the weekend, Friday, got to watch Toronto Maple Leafs for the first time in quite some time, and then on Saturday night as well with the Pittsburgh Penguins. They had two games, and as you know, the Leafs went over to Sweden, so they had some time off prior to, and then when they were in Sweden playing those games, I couldn't watch those games, so they were blacked out in our viewing area, and then so they had a week off before they played another game before they went over. Before they came back to Europe, and they played the lowly Chicago Blackhawks. They ended up losing that game in overtime. Willie Nylander had some chance to score the triple poster. I haven't seen that in a long time. Post, crossbar, post to not go in overtime, but then the Hawks came down and scored. A disappointing effort. Then on Saturday night, not a bad effort, but they blew a couple of leads in that hockey game, a game that they probably should have won against Sidney Crosby and the Pittsburgh Penguins. And Crosby's flying. He's having himself a hell of a season so far. I think it's the quickest he's been to the 13-goal mark in his illustrious NHL career. So it's good to see Crosby still flying and everything else. Me and Dave were going to talk about Crosby and Ovechkin and Ovechkin's comments earlier on in the weekend about earlier on last week when he said stuff about getting pushed out from the media and everything else. But anyway, back to the Leafs. The Leafs are rearing their ugly head, and what they are is this who they are. Now that we're past American Thanksgiving and they're in a playoff spot barely right now as it stands, 20 games in. So we're at the quarter pole of the National Hockey League season. So we're not going to talk about the American Thanksgiving now. It's a stretch to get seeding in the playoffs and make the playoffs. And by no means are the Leafs a lock to be in the playoffs. I think that they will get in the playoffs, but I also don't think that they have solved any problems that they've had in the past by getting past the first round and everything else. Yeah, they have a tougher team, as we talked about in the past with getting Foligno and Reeves. Reeves scored his first goal. He probably shouldn't still be in the lineup. He was a healthy scratch over in Europe, and he was a healthy scratch against Pittsburgh. Somehow he got in the lineup against the Blackhawks. I guess when you're playing a bad team, you want to have get some guys some ice time and see what they can do, and that's what happened. Same with the goaltender there, man. That's a wreck they got happening there with Samsonov, sorry. But you look at that Leafs team, and I still think that they have a problem. They still play down to all their competition's level, and I think that's the biggest problem that the Leafs have right now. People are pointing their finger at Mitch Marner not producing 5-on-5, and yes, that's a problem that we'll get to in half a second. But the problem that the Leafs have right now is that they play great against really good teams, and they play mediocre against really bad teams, and that's something that happened twice now with the Chicago Blackhawks. And those are points that you gotta get outright. You gotta get 4 points now. They're done with the Hawks. I guess the Hawks are their huckleberry, I guess, if you want to say. And you have a situation now where the Leafs needed to win a bunch of hockey games. They got a pretty tough schedule at home coming up, starting with the Florida Panthers, I think, on Wednesday night. and the Leafs are playing down to their competition. That's a bad thing because you kind of get in a bit of a rut, and you don't get those guaranteed points that you mark down once the season starts, and you mark down, okay, we got to get to 95, 96 point plateau, and we're gonna have, like, the teams do this. They do actually mark down guaranteed win nights and games that, you know what, maybe we won't win if we do win them, it's a bonus on the schedule. And so when you have a couple of games lost, like they did to the Chicago Blackhawks, not getting to the 4 points, it's a major problem. And the Leafs sit with a record of 10-6-3 right now, and with only 5 wins in regulation, that 10-6-3 could look a lot worse the way it goes. They didn't get a few overtime wins like the ones they got over in Europe. It would be a much different feeling around Leafs Nation right now, and a feeling that's full of doomsdayers. It always has been, always will be, until they can hoist Lord Stanley's Cup down Bloor Street or wherever the parade might take them to, if it ever does happen. But Leafs Nation is not in a very positive mood right now at all, and it starts with Marner and it starts with Matthew, your two big guns. And I understand that Marner hasn't scored in 7, so there is some cause for concern, and his 5-on-5 play is pretty lackluster at best, to say the least. The thing about Marner that I noticed in the 2 games, especially the game on against the Blackhawks on Friday, he had a couple of giveaways at his own blue line, and the body language of the roll of the eyes and through the head back and the shrug of the shoulders, like, oh Christ, not again. And you wonder if it was anybody but Mitch Marner, would they even see playing time? You remember Marner got benched last year, I think it was in LA, and he was only benched for maybe a shift and a half, and he's out back on the ice. And you wonder if anybody else but Marner, who created that turnover at his own blue line, like if it was a Max Domi, if he would have the seat on the bench technique going on with him. But you can't bench your best players. I mean, some teams are doing it, but those teams aren't Stanley Cup pretenders or contenders. Look, see if I worded that one in there. But you look at these teams that are benching their main guys. They aren't looking to win Stanley Cups. They aren't looking to win playoff rounds. They're just trying to get a culture built. And that's the biggest thing that happened with the Calgary Flames earlier on, and the Columbus Blue Jackets. But you have a situation right now where the Toronto Maple Leafs aren't in a spot where they scare anybody in the playoffs. And this team, yeah, they're built for the playoffs, and they went and got Foligno, or not Foligno, they went and got Bertuzzi, and they went and got Reeves, and they went and got Domi to help out in the playoffs. But the thing is, to succeed in the playoffs, your big guys have to be your main production. I'm not worried about Matthews scoring. I am worried about Tavares scoring in the playoffs. I'm not worried about Nylander scoring, but you never know what could happen in the playoffs. And his 17-point game point streak came to an end, so you don't know when he's going to get back on the hump again, get her done. He looks really good still, but your big 4 guys are going to have to be the guys who win you playoff rounds, and that's something that I don't have a whole bunch of confidence in come April, having those guys be the guys for the Leafs. I don't think that those 4 guys scare anybody throughout the National Hockey League, because they haven't done it in the past, and they don't look like they're doing it now, and they play to a certain level. And now that they're so I think they're 2 points up on the wild card spot with a Washington team that's really good. Is it getting to a point the Leafs are just they're a wild card team, and that's it? Because you look at the Bruins, they're still rolling. You look at the Florida Panthers, they didn't take a step back at all from they don't have a Stanley Cup hangover going to the finals last year. They're rolling and rocking and everything else, but the Detroit Red Wings are playing a little bit above their heads right now. But are they going to slow down? I personally don't think so. And rumor has it they're in on the Patrick Kane sweepstakes that might be revealed this week. Will Kane be the a point per game guy? Very well could be, and he could help out that Detroit team, because he played there with what the heck's his name, with DeBrincat in Chicago, so it might be a very good fit. And so we had somebody on the show earlier on this year that was talking about him going to Detroit. And I was like, I don't think so, but you know what? Maybe he will, because I'd like to see him. He's going to sign with an American team. There's no getting around that. And there is rumors about him going to Florida, the Florida Panthers as well, and maybe that might be a good spot for him. But there's money involved. I don't think Kane's going to play for $20 a game and a hot dog. So you got to think that going to Detroit might be one of those things. But back to the Leafs, I just don't think that they scare anybody come playoff time. I don't think that they have the kind of grit and determination that kind of hockey team has. There's a lot of people that are complaining a lot, and it is kind of gaudy, I guess you could say, all the commercials that you have, and that stupid one with whatever betting thing with Pronger and Draisaitl and Marner. That's the worst commercial I've seen in a long time. That is bloody awful. That's even on television, but that's another one. And then you have the Matthews commercial they're always on. A lot of people are complaining about that maybe these guys are bigger than the game and bigger in the Leafs, and the promotions they get and the sponsorship deals they get. Every team does it. Every market has those guys in every sport. So I don't think that's a bit of a distraction at all for Matthews and Marner. I just think that they're in a bit where maybe they need to be split up, and maybe Sheldon Keefe has to split these guys up a little bit and say, okay, let's share the wealth. Let's break things up a little bit. Let's break monotony. You guys been together for a while. We've been successful. Marner still got 20, 21 points, whatever it might be, and Matthews is still going to get his 40 goals, but maybe it's time to spread the wealth around the lineup a little bit, because you look at a guy like Bertuzzi, who's been really good as of late. Maybe give him some first line minutes and see what he can do, and maybe getting the puck to Matthews in some different scoring positions. And because if Marner don't have it some nights, and he's a smaller guy, but the league is a lot smaller than it is, but having a different kind of lineup construction might wake these guys up a little bit and get Marner going. Like Marner, like I said, he has 20 points. It's nothing to concern, but it's the lack of 5-on-5 points that is across Leaf Nation that people are very, very concerned about. And I'm concerned about that too. They're not getting any scoring from their defense, and so that's a major problem. One thing I would like to see that National Hockey League teams that they don't do, like we talked about Andy Mogan's, the tip of the cap once again to Andy Moog about goaltenders of the past. And yeah, we've just discussed this ad nauseum here at the 1420 in the morning and 1420 Sports Bar podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts. That I think goalies got to play more. And you want to get guys on these supposed guaranteed win nights, but if you're not putting a lineup out there that's going to be a guaranteed win night, are you really guaranteeing that win? The thing I bring up, well, the reason why I bring this up is Ilya Samsonov hasn't been very good this year at all, and he'll be the first to admit it and everything else, that he just hasn't been the guy that he was supposed to be, and he's hard on himself and he's between his own ears. But when you have a game that you're supposed to win, as it was supposed to be with Chicago, and Chicago lose everybody, if that's the game that you're supposed to win, you should get your best lineup out there, because everybody's gunning for the Leafs. They always have and always will be. And you get a home game like Chicago had in front of an afternoon crowd, big crowd and everything else, Thanksgiving weekend, the crowd's rocking, and it's a game that the Blackhawks have marked on their calendar as well. So you got to think that having Samsonov in net instead of Wall in for that game might have been a big mistake, because you want to get that win. You want to have your best lineup possible. You want to have the team comfortable in front of you. And it didn't look like they had that on with Samsonov. Teams do play differently in front of different goaltenders, and that goes back to Gump Worsley days. It's just you play a different style of defense. It might not be done consciously, but subconsciously, you're going to get a save here, a save there. You can let a guy take a shot from here, take a shot from there. I'm not saying it was all Samsonov's fault, but he just didn't look solid. So not having Samsonov in net, like if you can't put him in certain games, don't put him in at all, and make a guy start 4, 5, 6 games in a row. And you add this back-to-back thing. I get it. The conditioning. You know what? Screw it. You're a National Hockey League player. If you can't play back-to-back, then you can't play. Like the forwards play back-to-backs every night. The defensemen play back-to-back every night. Why a goaltender can't play a back-to-back like in an afternoon to a night game even? So there's still an extra few hours of rest in between. Are they not that psychologically strong between the years to play back-to-backs? I don't understand it. You look at the Andy Mogs today, you look at the Grant Fuhrs today, you look at the Martin Brodeurs of the day, and on it goes. Even Roberto Luongo, who played 70-some games for Florida one year, is when Jamie Noodles McLennan was his backup, where Noodles would get into 6-7 games a year. That's a good gig, by the way. But you wonder why, when you have these guaranteed win nights, you're not putting your best foot forward, your best lineup forward, and that's on Sheldon Keefe, and that's on management, and that's on the sports psychologist. I think it's a huge mistake, and you never know. Like the way the National Hockey League season ended last year with the Pittsburgh Penguins missing out of the playoffs by 1 point. Will that 1 point come back to haunt them come April? I think the Leafs will make the playoffs. I don't think there's that cause for concern as of yet. But in the games before Christmas, now those are the ones you got to win. You got to win as many games as you can, because winning games now it's so much important. And losing those points that they lost this year just to Chicago Blackhawks, is that going to keep them out of the playoffs? It just might. Or are you going to get a matchup you didn't think you were going to get in the first round of the playoffs? It's crazy to think that it's coming to that point point already where you're thinking about playoff spots with this Leafs team who's spending an awful lot of money, and they have Nylander in a playoff year and everything else that's happening. But what do they do right now to try to get out of this slump, get out of this win one, lose one thing? And they're 10. Like I said, they're 10-6-3, but it's a pretty phony 10-6-3 as of right now. And this team doesn't scare anybody. This team isn't poised to win a Stanley Cup by any means. They're not nearly as good as Boston. They're not nearly as good as the Rangers. They're not nearly as good as Las Vegas or as I said yesterday, the Los Angeles Kings, and I don't see them getting better. I just don't see this team being able to get any better with the roster that they have, the money they've already spent. Will playoff time come about, and the gritty three guys that they got in the offseason, will they be the difference? They will help. They will 100% help. But at the end of the day, your superstars win you Stanley Cups. They have to. Your superstars, the guy you pay money to, the guys you invest a lot of money in, and the guys you give ice time to, those are the guys who have to win you a Stanley Cup. And I don't think that they have the goaltending to win a Stanley Cup as of right now. And I know you don't need a superstar goaltender anymore to win you a cup, but you need a guy that's gonna stop all the hard ones or all the easy ones, a few of the hard ones. And right now, Wall's not that guy. There's a couple shots the other night that let's let the Carlson goal. He was screened pretty good, but he's a bigger guy and didn't get out there and get the angle cut down. I didn't think far enough. In the Crosby goal, he's just on a mission right now. But you just wonder if this what the Leafs can do, what Treliving might have up his sleeve, what the Shanna plan is now, because right now this team there's got to be at the quarter pole. This team is not a Stanley Cup contender, and I think right across Leafs Nation, I don't think anybody's going to dispute that. I don't think anybody's going to say that that they are. I don't think that this team scares anybody, and that's the biggest thing with the Toronto Maple Leafs right now. I don't think there's going to be a parade this year. 1967 is going to roll into that's 56 years. I think you're going to roll into 57 into 58 years and be is another wasted year of these guys, and that's a big thing. And I was watching like the NFL last night, and then this morning watching some things, getting ready to do this show. Like the Buffalo Bills have wasted basically another year of Josh Allen's career. And when does it become a point where you go, you know what, this just isn't working, and we have to go a different direction? We have to start thinking about the future a little bit, and not so much of 1 or 2 years down the road. I'm not saying trade Marner or trade Matthews, but eventually these guys are going to get long in the tooth, and they hit a ceiling and a plateau of their point production. And then what? Because now you guys start thinking, okay, 2 or 3 years down the road, when these guys are 30, 32 years old, and that's old in National Hockey League right now, right? So it's one of those things these teams got to regroup and rebuild and retool year in, year out. And when you give this much money, as they did to Matthews and Marner, and then now they're going to retool with Nylander, and then Tavares is off the books next year. He'll probably stick around for a big discount, but you just don't know how long this group can stay together, and how much confidence the management has in this group to get it done, because eventually you do have to start looking to the future, and the future, it's pretty bleak this year, I think, for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Are they a bad team? No. Are they a great team? No. They're a good team. They're an adequate average hockey team that isn't going anywhere. That is, I wouldn't put down $10 to see these to say that this team's going to win 4 rounds and win themselves a Stanley Cup this year at the moment. Does Treliving have something up his sleeve? He very well might have something going on. They can go out and get those guys from the Tanev out of Calgary and maybe get those deals done. But who are you trading and what are you giving up and everything else? So there are trade pieces out there, but I think that the Leafs, in their best interest, better pull the trigger sooner rather than later before those trade pieces are off the board and not worth as much, right? Because it's just you get to a point where everybody wants these guys, and then the price goes up. So my advice is to Treliving is go out and get a deal done now. Go out and get something taken care of now, because that's how you win Stanley Cups, and build your team now. Get something done, some team building before Christmas. Don't wait till the deadline and hope that player A fits in on March 10th. Get it done now, so have a few months to gel and meld and everything else, and get it going, because it very rarely works. Is that acquisition at the trade deadline? Does it very rarely works and brings the Stanley Cup home to anywhere, as we saw a few years ago with Foligno. But anyways, there's my talk for Leafs. I'm glad they weren't on TV for a few days, so I didn't have to watch. Like I was kind of forgot they even played hockey the way they so it was kind of good for my psyche. Got to focus on a few other things. But there it is. There's my Leaf rant for we'll go for it. We'll go 2 weeks talking about the Leafs, and we will be back at 7:30 Mountain Standard Time. Check your local listings every day, starting tomorrow. Promise you, Monday through Friday at 7:30 a.m. We'll get this thing going and get it live up on YouTube every day. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, as most of you have. And there's a lot of people watch watch us every day. All you got to do is hit subscribe, and you get to the alerts that come up, and the shorts and the things and the stuff, and it's all on there on 1420 at the 1420sportsbar.com. If you go to our website, it just clicks to everything, and then there you go. Anyways, here's a word from our sponsors over there at, well, you know who it is, SeatGeek.
Give Santa and his elves a break from the grind this Christmas season and ask for tickets from SeatGeek. SeatGeek has tickets for shows, concerts, and sporting events for around the globe. And by using promo code 1420POD, you'll save $20 on tickets. Tickets make for great stocking stuffers and gifts, so go to SeatGeek.com or the SeatGeek app for all of your ticket needs this holiday season and use promo code 1420POD today for your Christmas ticket.
There it is. I laugh at that every day. Like how many times a week I say 1420 pod at SeatGeek, and I wonder the people who regularly listen to our show if that's ingrained in your head as well, because I know it's ingrained in my head. So thank you very much, everybody who listens to the show and has used the promo code, because without old SeatGeek, we probably wouldn't be able to keep this thing going as we are and growing as we have been. So thank you very much to SeatGeek on this Monday morning. We got a new segment coming up, right? So don't go away after birthdays and on this day. Make sure you listen right to the bitter end today. Anyways, on this day in 1997, Detroit Lions running back Barry Sanders ran for 167 yards and 3 touchdowns, and the Lions 55-20 drubbing of the Chicago Bears in front of 77,904 people at the Pontiac Silverdome in Pontiac, Michigan. Sanders' 167 yards helped him top the 1,500-yard mark for the 5th time in his career and the 100-yard mark in a game for the 11th consecutive time. Lions quarterback Scott Mitchell was 20 for 31 for 282 yards and threw for 2 touchdowns in the victory. The win moved their record to 7-6 in the season and dropped the lowly Bears to 2-11 mark. Sanders would finish the season with a league and career high 2,053 yards and won his only NFL MVP. The Lions would finish the 1997 season with a 9-7 record, good for 3rd in the NFL. In NFL Central, and would lose the wildcard game 20-10 to Tampa. Sanders would retire at the end of the 1998 season with 99 career touchdowns and 15,269 yards on this day in 1997. The Lions, and then they kind of blew a stinker this year on Thanksgiving Day. Really kind of put a screw to my football pool, but I haven't checked out how I fared yesterday and where I stand now. But that the Lions are definitely an F that team right now in my books. And we'll, like I said, and Dave will be back tonight. We'll record our usual weekly look back on the week that was in the National Football League. That's what I'm going to talk about as well. And anyways, here we go. Happy 45th birthday to Jimmy Rollins, born on this day in 1978 in Oakland, California. Rollins was drafted in the 2nd round of the MLB draft by the Philadelphia Phillies in 1996 out of Enciniac High School in Alameda, California. Rollins made his major league debut on September 17, 2000, when the Phillies hosted the Florida Marlins in front of 15,496 people at Veterans Stadium. Rollins went 2 for 4 with a stolen base and a triple off of Marlins starter Chuck Smith to lead off the 3rd inning. Rollins spent 15 seasons in Philadelphia with the Phillies and was a 3-time All-Star, and was also National MVP in 2007 in a season where he played in 162 games and the career NL high number of triples with 20. Rollins spent the 2015 season in LA with the Dodgers and played in 41 games with the Chicago White Sox in 2016 before retiring. In his career, Rollins hit 264, stole 470 bases, hit 231 home runs, and had 936 RBIs. He was a part of that 2008 World Series team with the Phillies, and then 2009 he was part of that team that lost to the New York Yankees the last time the Yankees won a World Series. So Jimmy Rollins, he was a really good player. It's crazy to think he won the 1 MVP, and that year he wasn't even an All-Star in the National League, because all the great shortstops and everything else back then. He wasn't an All-Star the 1 year he won the MVP. So it's kind of like, does the All-Star game mean a whole bunch? No, I guess when you make it, like if you're in the starting lineup, I guess it means a lot. But the fans vote on it. It's kind of wishy-washy. I watch it. I mean, I like it, but it's a bit wishy-washy. I mean, you make the All-Star game, I'm sure there's a bonus in there for you and everything else, but it's just funny. Anyways, I got a new segment that I thought about a few days ago when I didn't know how to go. I got some graphics coming for the next couple of days, how we're going to get those up there. But it's something called Final Thoughts, FT 1420 Final Thoughts. There we go. Final Thoughts, just a quick little soliloquy, I guess, of some thoughts. And here we go for Final Thoughts on the 1420 Sports Bar podcast, or 1420 in the morning, sorry. The other day I was asked about if I was going to touch on the Milan Lucic situation that happened out there in Boston between him and his wife. And they said, are you going to touch on that? And I said, you know, it's a pretty touchy subject. I'll probably stick away from that. When I actually wanted to say, why would I? Milan Lucic is somebody that I don't know. His wife is someone that I don't know. It's somebody I will probably never lay eyes on in my life. Somebody I will never have a conversation with in my life. What happened between Milan Lucic and his wife is between Milan Lucic, his wife, and the great state of Massachusetts. Now, it's none of my business, or not, and it's one of those things that I don't think that we need to concern ourselves about as a society. I don't understand why there's an infatuation on a day-to-day basis with either celebrities or athletes and their personal lives. It's none of our business what goes on. The only time we should really care about what goes on in these people's lives and when they're wearing their jerseys per se, or their team uniform or whatever it might be, and they're outperforming their athletic endeavors on the field or on the ice or on the court. I don't think that we should be concerning ourselves with what happens outside of the lines of a sporting stadium. I don't understand why we feel the need to care about people that will never meet, that will never know. I understand once the court decides what goes on with said athlete, whether it be Milan Lucic or Deshaun Watson or whatever it might be, after the fact, whatever goes on and all the truth comes out, then you can have an opinion on what goes on. Until it comes out, until it becomes a public knowledge, we should not be making any statements or anything else, or any speculation about what goes on in an athlete's life, in their private life. A few years back, it's a lot of years back now, Charles Barkley said it best. He goes, I'm not a role model. I'm not a role model. The role model should be the parents. The role model should be the school teachers. Role model should be principals, or the guy down the street. I had a great role model when I was growing up on 552 22nd Street in Fort Macleod, Alberta. A guy by the name, who's a client of Deanne's now, and he's still a great guy to this day. He was a great role model growing up. But a guy by the name of Todd Coughlin, and he always had a smile on his face. Was always more than willing to let the snot-nosed kid down the road join the game of volleyball or basketball in his driveway. And he was a great guy and a great person to look up to and everything else. Sports was a lot different back then. I understand that we didn't have the constant media attention. We had to wait till 4 o'clock for the newspaper to come out. There was no such thing as Sports Center, and so it wasn't pounded down our heads all the time. And I think that was a better time in our lives, and a better time to be a sports fan, where we weren't inundated with everything that's going on in the world of sports and getting into these people's personal lives. I'm fairly certain if we knew what was going on inside these the people's personal lives on a daily basis, we would not be impressed with what goes on. They have lives just like we do. They have stuff going on just like we do, and they have a lot of money. And there's some things that happen in the world of sports, and it's got brought to the forefront a lot more in recent years with the rape allegations and the sexual assault allegations and the beating of wives and everything else. I understand it shouldn't be hidden, and it shouldn't take a back burner. But we have those situations just right beside us in our own neighborhoods, in our own communities, in our own towns, in our own cities, that we should probably pay attention to more than a person by the name of Milan Lucic. There are people who are in your neighborhood right across the street who are having problems in their lives, whether it be monetarily, whether it be abuse situations, whether it be violent situations, whether it be whatever it might be. There is things happening in your world right next door that you should probably pay more attention to, or within your family that you don't even know what's going on because you're so enthralled in what's going on in the world of sports. I'm not saying don't listen to podcasts. I'm not saying don't watch things. I'm not saying don't be aware and say this is what it is. I'm saying we need to be much more aware of what goes on in the world of Brent Redlinsky and of whoever's listening to this show. I have neighbors, I don't know what their names are, and that's on me, and that's something that I have to take care of in my life. I have neighbors across the street that I've met on a number of occasions. I can't remember their names because I'm so enthralled in the world of sports. I guess it is my job, but you know what? In the big picture, those guys, like the athletes, don't matter, because you know what? They don't care about us. And anybody who thinks that they do, they're sadly mistaken. Yes, they go out there, and yes, the athletes entertain, and yes, they do provide us a service for entertainment, and they are paid a healthy amount of money and a healthy sum of money, and money that most of us will never ever see in our lives, that we will never understand. So why we are trying to understand what's going on in their personal lives, I have no idea why, and I have no idea what the infatuation is of people like the Kardashians and everything else. Yes, looking behind the closed doors and looking what the rich and famous does. You go back to the lifestyle of the rich and famous with Robin Leach. It's one of those things that you people get enthralled by and understand it. But you know what? Next time you feel the need to look up what Milan Lucic did, or more recently what's going on in Corey Perry's situation in Chicago, why he's not playing, maybe go ask your neighbor how they're doing, or instead of avoiding your neighbor and not talking to them, or someone has their head down a little bit and isn't having the best of days. And we can all feel it. And we all see it when it happens. If you're at the grocery store, instead of avoiding a person, go and say, hey, how's it going? How are things? We don't do that enough, and we don't even pretend to even do that enough. We're so concerned about what people who don't know us, who will never know us, who don't care about us, we're more concerned about them, and that's the problem we have in society. Like I said, Charles Barkley said it best, that he's not a role model because we didn't want to know. We heard about it before. The Tiger Woods situation came up. Everybody was shocked that what was going on. Why anybody was shocked? The guy was given millions and millions of dollars as a kid, and that's who he was. And like, when someone tells you who they are, believe them, because that's who they are. Go out and meet a neighbor. Go out and talk to somebody who actually wants to talk back to you. You know, listen to 1420 podcast. I'm not saying do that, but enough with the infatuation about what's going on in their personal lives, because you know what? We will never know. We'll never know what happened in the big picture. It's none of our business. Look out for your neighbors. Look out for your friends. Look out for each other. But more importantly, it doesn't matter where you are. It's who you're with. Have a great day, folks, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.